Hi, my name is Moshe Kindler, and I'm the publisher of The Jewish Link,
Hi, this is Elizabeth Kratz. I'm editor of The Jewish Link.
and you're on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast.
We're here for another Thursday sporting session of the Pitch Meeting podcast. We have a very special guest here today. Rabbi Pesach Lerner called me up and said we had to meet and interview the fellow sitting here right now. His name is Shay Kallach, okay, who is the head founder of Netsach Israel. Okay, Shay, welcome to the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. We're happy to have you. But most of us don't know much about you. So give us the Shay Kallach basic story. So tell us about yourself, Netsach Israel, how you got here, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. I'm trying actually to learn about myself during the years, but
It's important.
yeah, very important. I'll start with your permission with the military service. Because I had the privilege to serve as a combat pilot, as a fighter pilot at the Air Force, and also had the privilege to be the commander of the Air Force. The commander of the officers' course at the Flight Academy. And once upon a time, it was around a year after 9/11 events, and there were like a high alert in Israel all over the country. The three main bases, one in the north called Ramat David, one in the center called Tel Nov, and one at the southern area called Ovda, next to Elat. And it was Leila Seder. And I
Pesach.
was, it was Pesach. Leila Seder, we need to actually stipulate that, emphasize. Leila Seder, it's the night that the Jewish people actually went out of slavery to freedom. And we sat to eat, me and the leader of there are two jet crafts in high alert, in readiness, in konenut, we call it in Hebrew. And we are supposed to take off in 5 minutes in an F-16. In F-15, it's 7 minutes, but in F-16, you have to be on air in 5 minutes alert. So we sat on table to the Leila Seder, and suddenly the alarm rang, and we ran to the jet crafts, and we took off. It was around, I believe, 8:00. And there is a rule in Israel. In the Air Force, once the foe, it's called an enemy aircraft, crosses the 80 miles, the 80 miles line, you need to actually take off against him. And if he doesn't answer in the radio, you have to intercept it. So he didn't answer, and we intercepted the aircraft. At the beginning, you don't know if it's a commercial flight or...
You're not close enough.
You're not close enough, and you can see the velocity, but even though. So we intercepted him, and at the end, the answer and the radio, it turned north to the Mediterranean Sea, and we actually fly back to Ovda Air Force Base. And at that time, I suddenly felt like I grew up in a kibbutz. I grew up in Kibbutz Genosar. I was born there. Kibbutz Genosar, it's actually a secular kibbutz, the kibbutz of Yigal Allon. Have you heard of Yigal Allon?
Sure.
Yeah, he was the high commander of the War of Independence. And, I'm ninth generation from Israel. And actually, I didn't know all those years to whom, until I decided to make a tshuva process. You, in a few minutes, understand why I decided.
I was actually going to ask that because my impression was there weren't that many guys from the Dati world who ended up in the Air Force. I know it's been a big deal the last 20, 30 years that first of all, the pilots, Elizabeth, are the elites of the elites. Let's say that, and it was a big deal. I know there've been more the last 20 years, but there were not that many Dati pilots until recently.
Even today, it's not that common. And more than that, it's almost impossible. When you are situated in the elite of the elite, as you have just stipulated the expression, it's very hard. But Even though, I mean, I felt that night like, revelation, or I felt like 40,000 years of history upon my shoulders. I mean, it was the night that the Jewish people went out from slavery to freedom, the night that all the citizens in Israel set for Leil Seder, and I had the privilege to actually guard on the skies of Israel. It's called Haganat Shmei Adina, defending on Israeli sky.
When was this? By which how many years ago? Which Pesach was this?
Wow, it's
You said it was
almost
after 9/11.
after 9/11, and 20 years ago. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you're a young pilot, active duty service. So
Yeah, young pilot, active duty service. It takes actually 5 years, but then it took 4 years to graduate the academy flight academy in Hatzarim Air Force Base. Yeah, yeah. So I can remember that feeling. I'm trying to explain it like, you know, I knew all those years that I'm ninth generation from Tzfat, but my ancestor came from Galicia. But anyway, we all the time, I mean, all those years, re-educated. There is a famous story of Ben Gurion and Einstein. Have you heard of? He took him to the Kotel, to the Western Wall.
is that the story where he tried to get him to think about becoming Nasi, to become the president?
No,
Oh, okay.
I know. But anyway, they saw a Haredi Jew davening in the Kotel, in the Western Wall. So Ben Gurion put his hand on his shoulder and he asked him, "Can you see this Haredi Jew?" And of course. So Ben Gurion told him, "This is the last form of Jews in Israel. Now we are creating the new Jew." So we actually, in the kibbutz, not in purpose, by the way. I mean, it was like part of the cultural, I would say, environment. I mean, you need to create a new Jew in order to develop the state of Israel. So we re-educated like the Jewish people actually was born in 1948 with the establishment of the state of Israel. But at that night, I felt, so I knew it later, that we actually born in 1948. Anomidi. I mean, to the creation of the world, because Avraham Avinu was born in 1948. Yes, so you asked me to try to tell about myself. I think that since that night, it was a process. Actually,
Were you becoming more that night was changed you? You had
that
an awareness
night when I once landed, I decided that I have to figure out my identity again, my roots, my heritage, my tradition, and I decided to learn, and it took me years, about 5 years, 6 years, ever since I decided to get into the Bet Midrash, and I had been learning for 12 years in Bet Midrash.
Can I ask where? What yeshiva?
In Eli.
Hafsadah.
Yeah. And Baruch Hashem, I married to Galit.
Hold on 1 second. The Eli yeshiva is considered one of the hotter, newer, stronger yeshivot has there. So I'm just I hear only good things about.
We
the
just
yeshiva
heard
in Eli.
today that they lost another son of Eli, Ivri Dickstein, Shem Yikom Demo,
in Lebanon.
a friend's son. Yeah, today, an hour ago. And I think it's the 27th casualty on this war. Yeah. By the way, it's very well connected to the generation in Israel. I mean, I was born again in a kibbutz, and the kibbutzim were you mentioned the elite. I mean, the kibbutzim actually were the elite of the elite who actually established the state of Israel. I mean, the Zionism had three main principles: the Tiashvut, settlement, the Aliyah. How do you say Aliyah in English?
Immigration.
Aliyah.
Bringing people in.
Immigration, Aliyah, and the Bitachon, the security. And just to intensify the fact that in the 6 Days War, there were 789 casualties. 25% of them were kibbutznikim. And the kibbutznikim were then less than 3% of the society, of the population.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
I didn't
unbelievable.
realize that small.
But today, we can find ourselves in a very, very new, in the very essence of a new generation. I mean, today there are around 50% of the casualties of this war are religious. 25% are traditional, more from the periphery, and you get almost 80 to 85% that are not kibbutznikim. And actually, that brings us to the struggle in Israel before the war. I mean, during the judicial reform and after the war. This is all about, Yechiel Leiter. Have you heard of him?
Sure.
He was just nominated
Yeah.
to the new ambassador in Washington. So he actually lost his son, Moshe, Hashem Yikom Damo.
Yeah.
So when he became a bereaved father, the Mevasser, there is a special unit in the army who is involved to let the parents know of their loss. They knocked on the door, and he told me when I went to comfort him that he had only one question: who among his 7 sons and sons-in-law got killed? So this is the new elite in Israel, and it makes all the struggle, among us. But we are one, and we have to preserve the unity of Israel.
Hold on, you're jumping ahead a little bit. Just I want to hear.
I have to mention.
Yeah.
If you don't stop me, I can speak for hours.
I'm getting that sense, but let's. I'm interested still. How did you get to Eli, and then we'll get to Netsach Israel to where you're to what's going on. So do you have a connection to yeshiva? How did you?
So I told you about this story as a preface and as a symbol, but actually at the very how do you say neurim, during the puberty maybe. I was very confused. I mean, you're in
IF. You're in Chalavir at this time.
No,
correct?
at the age of 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I found myself actually protest with Arabs against Jews. I'm trying to explain here in the United States, you're very well connected to your Judaism. This way or the other, never mind. You have to preserve your identity, your Jewish awareness. Otherwise, you won't be part of it.
Correct.
But in Israel, you have the privilege to be a secular boy. And why is that? Because Eretz Israel keeps you that way. I mean, once you serve in the army, you serve Klal Israel. And when you all of us part of Klal Israel, but practically in Eretz Israel, you're part of all this Klal, of all this general, and you can be a secular without actually any danger to assimilate among the Goyim. Here we have around 75% of assimilation.
Yeah. Many of the Israelis who come here have a bad reaction, and many of them actually feel a need to become more, not necessarily more dati, but more Masorati. They feel like they miss Israel, and they kind of cluster. Some assimilate, most do not. They like being they're bothered by the fact that it's not Israel. So.
Yeah, Israel. By the way, I'm about to cry. I would like to go back to Israel. Only for 5 days, 6 days. So anyway, I found myself actually protest with Arabs against Jews because I believed in it. I was raised on those principles. I mean, if you take the left side of the spectrum,
like Shalom Achshav, pro peace.
Shalom Achshav, of course, pro peace. Okay.
At all costs.
Yeah, of course. But my grandfather actually was a Haredi until the age of 13. And as part of Chozrim B'She'ela in Eretz Israel, actually served in the Etzel, the famous Irgun of Begin. And he actually tried to convince us to read Jabotinsky and Begin. So it was the beginning of my itpakhut, subbering. So that was the first phase. Subbering towards nationalism. Secondly, once I actually graduated the flight academy, I was very happy on the one side. On the other, I was very sad. I mean, I didn't realize actually the meaning of life. I wanted to understand, why am I supposed to wake up every morning and get up from the bed? Didn't know that. And I actually asked myself all this time, but I promised myself that whatever is going to happen, I'm not going to find myself at the age of 80 as a pilot, as a commercial pilot, without answering that question. Why should I get up from bed every morning? So was the second phrase. I mean, nationalism, sobering towards like meaning of life. And the third was at that period of time that I had the privilege to be the commander of the officers course at the flight academy.
Not Barachad. No, this
No.
was IF.
No, there is a specific stage in the flight academy course called the officers course. Is very parallel to the main general officers course at Ramon, as you just mentioned. And actually, we had a cooperation. And then I noticed that 40% of the graduates are religious. You can see the results today.
Nechel Avir, in your time.
No. I mean, we had a cooperation with the general officers course at Ramon. I mean, the battalion officers course. And then I noticed that 40% are religious. And you can see, by the way, the results today of the casualties, among the casualties.
I just want to interrupt you, by the way. So I worked for Machon Lev.
Yep.
Okay, and Machon Lev, they would always be proud to show me. They would show me certain units in the army. They said, we can't show you the names, but we want you to know that our graduates make up, and they would show me the organizational chart. This is 18 years ago. And that our graduates, Dati graduates make up 50, 60, 70% of these units, more than the technology side. But that was it just, and I know it's only been growing, and it continues to grow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anyway, I would like to emphasize, with your permission, that at that time I felt like the Zionism actually was stolen from me. I mean, those men
Was stolen?
Yeah. I mean, those three main principles, like settlement, aliyah, and security, I felt like the religious Zionism took the stand of security. I mean, now it's their role, not mine. You have to understand what is to be a kibbutznik. I can see that you are in shock and you don't understand what kibbutznik is. A kibbutznik, especially a fighter pilot, he believes that the state is his, okay? And nobody is authorized to take control over it. I was born like that.
As a kibbutznik.
The state is mine.
Is that really true today? Is that really to this day? Don't the Tel Avivians, the secular the Tzfonim, I think don't they believe that they own the state of Israel? Meaning the world has shifted. Yes, the kibbutzniks built the country. I get it, but I'm just saying the secular elites feel that they own the country. So
are you saying you grew up, or you were born with the belief of a birthright, of like ownership because of where you were born and who you were born, what family you were born into, and then later questioned this identity?
I was born to this kind of educational environment, and ownership, that's the word. I mean, this is ours, not others. I mean, we have to lead it, and elite, it's not a bad word. An elite, through all the history, I mean, since the dawn of history, actually was the role to lead the country, to build the country. This is an elite, in essence. And actually, we were the role models of Israel. And now, the secular role models in Israel actually feel that the religious Zionism actually is stealing their roles. So this is the main principle of the struggle in Israel. We need to understand that.
That's in the sense that it's not a bad struggle if they feel that Eretz Yisrael is still something important. I read Haaretz. I can't believe these people are Israeli citizens. They basically they almost feel there's nothing worth fighting for.
Of course.
So
Once there wasn't a progressive movement, it wasn't a bad struggle. But once there is, it's a very, very bad struggle. I mean, there is a very, very tiny minority of radical groups of power, of progressive movements, who actually would like to eradicate the Jewish identity from the Jewish state. Do you live in America? Have you seen the progressive movements here?
of course,
The woke
very strong,
culture?
very strong.
Okay, so very strong, but you can see that the American people actually rebelled against those old elites, old Democrats elites. I think this is how I explain the elections, don't you?
We see it. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
Okay.
that and the fact that
But in Israel,
people
but in
can't
Israel,
afford anything.
the deep state in Israel, it's much more deeper. It's much more deeper. I mean, just to emphasize, for example, at the night of the massacre, actually, the general staff, the chief of staff, the head of the intelligence, the commander of the Southern Command, sat and decided not to wake up Prime Minister Netanyahu, for example. It's not like they were playing chess and decided not to wake him up. I mean, they haven't been waking him up for 20 years. We need to understand why. It's very well connected to the institutions like Wexner Fund and the New Israel Fund, which actually would like to eradicate again or re-educate the general staff of Israel. They send the general staff to Harvard University every year to learn how to be anti-Semite and how to actually.
they get that as a byproduct, by the way. They don't send them to learn how to be anti-Semites.
But so you're saying that the Jewish identity of Israel is being eradicated by its own people?
Yeah, I tell you a short story. I have a colleague named Ronnie Sassover. Actually, was the head of an organization called Meirim, who is supposed to take care of those progressive movements among elementary schools. And she was invited with her second grade daughter to a Chumash party. Not a Siddur party, Chumash party. Chumash, I mean the Torah. And she got her Sefer Torah, was enveloped, was wrapped with like gold envelope, and to her amaze, she opened the Chumash, and paging, and it was empty. So she asked the manager, "I can see that you're shocked. That's good."
Okay.
So what was the answer? What was the answer of the manager? He told her, today we're living in a world that your daughter has to rewrite the Torah values again. Try to imagine, after 4,000 years of values, I mean, since Avraham Avinu, we've reached that situation, but we need, again, I'm speaking from pain, but there is a hope. There is a hope because there is a struggle again between those who lead, actually, for example, the army and the people, I mean, the nation, who actually would like to lead the people to a right situation, to a right, let's say, to right place. And Baruch Hashem, I mean, you can notice that 1 year ago in the massacre, it was a disaster, like atrocities that we've never seen since the Holocaust. But today, we had the ability to kill Sinwar, Yimach Shimo. We had the ability to kill Nasrallah, Yimach Shimo V'zichro. We attacked twice in Yemen. We attacked once in Iran. We're going to attack it in a second time in a couple of weeks, B'ezrat Hashem. Is that right? Maybe a couple of months.
We haven't heard that much of from Iran about their counterattack. I don't know if anyone's noticed that.
Yeah, B'ezrat Hashem.
They said they were going to attack again. That no one's heard anything from them.
I think we should wait to January 20th, and
the election.
yeah.
They're all too busy looking at.
Let's talk.
Television.
So I get the issue. Let's talk specifics about you and Netsach Israel. When you got started, when you left the Air Force, and the goals. I think of and the goals of Netsach Israel and the practical steps. And also remember, you're not just talking to me and Elizabeth here, but ultimately you'll also be talking to our community as well. So what is the specific message? Yeah.
Thank you for your question. I would love to answer that question, but I think that we need another more preface. I mean, about myself as a microcosm, not, I do not like to speak about myself, but sometimes there is a need. And I think that we can actually...
Can I just teach you something? No one cares about Netsach Israel. No, I don't care about Netsach Israel. I'm going to tell you straight out. I don't care. Okay, I'm not that I don't care. I care about people.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's really it's Shay Kallach that would be I care about the name of the organization.
Yeah,
it doesn't. You have to tell people
me as well
your story. Okay,
me as well. But Netsach Israel, it's not in vain. Netsach Israel is the eternity of Israel. Now, the struggle today in Israel is between a Jewish state or a state for the Jews. And this is all about, this is the hope. What I mean, Herzl actually stipulated an expression called Miklat Batuach, a safe shelter for the Jews, meaning that we are not supposed to be annihilated in Auschwitz, for example, or Treblinka. Okay? But this is all about, and this is the hope. And I actually, from that point of view, I can understand my friends in the squadron actually protested against the judicial reform and actually made, kind of a coup. They refused, they threatened with refusal upon the army in order to impose and force their agenda upon the majority. Okay? And again, the struggle is between the Jewish state and state of the Jews. What do I mean? We have a goal. We have a destiny. We have a mission. We didn't come to Israel. After 2,000 years of diaspora, we didn't come to establish a safe shelter. This was the first phase. But we actually returned to Zion in order to establish a Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh, in order to establish Am Zgula there, Avraham Avinu. We are about to read the parasha, the weekly parasha, the last parasha, Lech Lecha, V'nivrechu Becha Kol Mishpechot Ha'adama. You have to leave your homeland, your father's house, and you need to get to Eretz Israel and to establish a sovereign state in order to be a bless to the whole world. This is our destiny, to be Or LaGoim, V'netaticha le'or goim, says the prophet. And I can tell you that, you would ask, how could it be? How could it be? There wasn't raised as with a Jewish identity. So I can prove it. I was supposed to be the leader of those protests in Kaplan. I was to be the leader of those refusers in Kaplan, in Achim LaNeshek, Brothers in Arms. But I decided to change the mindset. I decided, to refigure out my Jewish identity. And this is where the society actually is situated today in Israel. There is a massive movement of tshuva. There is a massive movement of people, of very, very young soldiers walking with tzitzit. They even don't know what it is.
Yes, that we've heard, yes. Everyone's wearing tzitzit.
It's actually symbolic, but there is an inner, there is a reason. I'm sorry to be sometimes not practical, but I'm trying to give you a very, very essence answer. There is a reason, and there is a reason of the reasons. For example, do you have a kid? Do you have kids? Baruch Hashem. So at least 2?
4.
Baruch Hashem. 4 kids. So sometimes, maybe not your kids, but there is a struggle between the children. So the young one actually stole a candy from the older. So what the older son do most of the time? Give him a kick, and the younger one starts crying. Right?
Wait, were you in my
So-
house yesterday?
Yes.
So
Her kids are young. She has younger kids.
Okay,
yeah.
so you can ask yourself, okay, so he took a candy, and the older kid actually gave him a punch. Why is that? That's the reason. But there is the reason of the reasons. I mean, why in this occasion, in those cases, why the older kid feel he needs to punch him or kick him once his candy was stolen? So it's very difficult. It takes time to explain what's going on in Israel. It's not like, I think that the main question we need to ask ourselves today, where was the Air Force? Actually, all the Army, but I can give you from a former combat pilot perspective. From my point of view, where was the Air Force at October 7th? Is that a good question?
That's the question. It's
the question of the questions.
Yeah.
Okay. How? So
They weren't sleeping, I imagine. Were they sleeping? I don't know. I don't know.
No.
I know some of the answers, but tell me.
no. So easy, slowly, we're trying to, Zat Hashem, to get to Netsach Israel. As to your question, again, I think it's all depend. And again, I'm not going to answer why the old kid gave punch to the younger one once he got his candy. I'm trying to explain the reason of the reasons. When you have a perception of a safe shelter, so you are not right. You're always trying to justify. Actually, you are a murderer. You killed innocent in the Gaza Strip, in Judea and Samaria, in Lebanon. You're not supposed to be there. And this is why the world in Hague, in the JCC, actually call you a murderer. But if you understand that we came to Zion, we returned to Zion, not in order to establish just a safe shelter, because this is our mission, this is our goal, so we can justify our existence in Zion. And that's the source, actually, of what happened in October 7th. Because in the last 25 decades, the 25 years, the last 2 decades, what was happening? The generals re-educated at Wexner Fund. And there actually, they learned that there is no victory at all. No victory at all.
Containment, called.
If I ask the generals today what victory is, I think that the answer would be there is no enemy. And once there is no enemy, on the other side of the border, there is no foe, but a friend. And once there is a friend, you have to keep it. You have to guard on him. How can you do it? You can limit the Air Force by judicial limitations. For example, have you heard of Akesh Bagag, knocking on the roof?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's a knocking of the roof? Actually, it's an insurance for terrorists. How could it be? Have you heard of Naza, Nezek Agavi? A damage can cause to innocent people. Mm-hmm. This is a Naza. So you are unable to attack once there are too many innocent casualties option. To be casualties during this attack, during this assault. So, and limits upon limits upon limits. So once there is such a massacre, you're unable actually to functionize. We actually closed 20 battalions during the last 2 decades, because we truly believed, our generals truly believed that there is going to be, we need actually a very small and wise army, because conventional wars cannot actually occur anymore.
Okay. Okay. So let's break down what you're saying. You're saying that the Israeli government and military reassessed over the last 2 decades what it means to be Israel and what it means to be an army,
Yeah.
and altered their perception of enemyhood, like the fact that there is an enemy there that wants to kill you. They are assuming that everybody has the same worldview that they do. Everybody wants to live in peace,
Yeah.
and everybody wants to have a family and a home, and they don't have martyrdom or jihad. There's an assumption that jihad and Islamism isn't a true threat,
Yeah.
and is basically a creation of somebody else and doesn't exist right next to the border of Be'eri. They talk. You're saying they talk themselves into the idea
Yeah,
that the enemy is reasonable and does not want to kill them.
Exactly. I mean, I would conclude it to one sentence: from the river to the sea,
Right.
we shall peace with love. We should live with love, peace, and free.
Right.
That's
That's
it.
what they think Palestine
Yeah.
is.
Even today,
Yeah.
Arayom.
Even today, but today, and this is the hope. I mean, I think, I hope I succeeded to show you that there is, there is a hope for the society to actually regain its tradition again, regain its rooted again, regain its identity again. I mean, look at the Air Force. We have the best Air Force in the world. You know how it, I mean, to manage 100 aircrafts in the air in 3 waves of attack. You know how difficult it is to actually to make a flight to Iran and to attack there. Twice you have to fuel on the air, and it's almost impossible. So I'm speaking from the depths of my heart. I mean, how could it be?
So
So now,
to clarify,
yeah, please, of course.
Your work is to awaken the uniquely Jewish mission of Eretz Yisrael.
Exactly.
Okay.
We have to actually re-educate the society, to actually develop the correct mindset. I mean, to stand upright, to bring the dignity to the nation, the confidence to the people, and the freedom of speech and thoughts back to the citizens. This is all about, and we're doing it. Sorry, pardon. We are doing it alongside our achievements and accomplishments that should be in the reality.
And is this one of the reasons why you're doing it? Netsach, this is not a political party. You're not joined up with any existing. You're kind of outside, meaning you want to achieve. You don't want to be associated with any.
Yeah, we are an institution of it's called in Israel the third section of the society. And actually, I would like to pose a question upon you. I mean, you asked me at the beginning, what am I doing here? What was my answer? I really don't know. But I do think, someone asked me 2 days ago if I came to schnorr. I mean, to take money from the.
I asked earlier.
No.
You avoided. I mean, I asked your colleague, but
okay, no, it's not my purpose. I mean, of course we need, but actually we succeeded actually to establish a movement with thousands of standing orders. I mean, with monthly payment in 6 months. It's unbelievable, because I think, like in America, the movement that can actually how do you say agit, actually can bring back together the people in order to bring back the we just bought a billboard. We wrote there, make Israel great again. I mean,
I saw
make the IDF great again.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw.
In America, make America great again. Israel is great. The IDF is great. In psychoanalysis, there is an expression called "nekudat ha'avaron," the point of blindness. What's the point of blindness? I mean, leaders actually thought that there is going to be a peace. I mean, Rabin, whom I was very admired by me. We actually thought that those are days of the end of wars. There are not going to be wars anymore. And this is why actually he devoted his life to bring the peace. We all want peace. And Oslo Accords and all that. And then was an organization called Shalom Achshav, Peace Now, who actually took out the Israeli army from Lebanon. And Lebanon has become a monster. So what's the point of blindness? I mean, Nekudat Ivaron, it's a point that can actually take out the inner power from a person. But here, as a collective, there is an inner power to the society, the people of Israel. And the inner power of those warriors who actually devote their lives in order to keep upon you and me that we will be able to sit here and speak. Those warriors actually give the strength to the leadership, to the army leadership, and to the leadership of the state. And I think it can answer your question, man. I mean, this is all about the movement, the Netsach Israel movement, is about to actually צריך לאגד, ברכה לי המילה. Anyway, to unite. Exactly, thank you. So the goal of Netsach Israel movement is to unite the people to an understanding that we ought to need to change our mindset to the goals, the right mission of the Jewish state. And this is actually the next stage, the next phase of the Zionism. It's not it's not a Herzlianic Zionism, which again, with stipulated the expression of Miklat Batuach, safe shelter, and another expression, to be a Am Kechol Amim, a nation like all the nations. And actually those members of Aliyah Shniya who actually built the country, they believed that to be Am Kechol Amim, there were pogroms in East Europe called Sufot Banegev. And they thought, sincerely, that to be Am Kechol Amim, why we were massacred by those Ukrainians and
Cossacks,
Russians and Crusades and during the Inquisition, because we do believe that we are Am Sgula. So once we cancel our Am Sgula, once we are Am Kechol Amim, we actually can go back to Israel and no one will want to hurt us again. But the Abrahamic Zionism, this is again the epoch of the Jews today, especially the Jews in Israel. The Abrahamic Zionism go back to the birth of Avraham Avinu. It all derived from Avraham Avinu. All the values, all the purpose, the missions. This is all about.
I have a question for you. Well, I know we're coming to the end of it, but won't this happen anyway? Meaning, as the Dati and Haredi and Masorati become the majority, the big majority, that's going to take over in business and everything. Meaning, like the Dati, we're seeing that's going to happen. Isn't it going to happen or any on its own? It's going to take 30 to 50 years, but it's happening. No,
it's a very good question. Thank you so much. I truly believe that a leader has to actually, in democracy, process has to be in process. You cannot impose anything upon the society, anything upon the public, not the Oslo Accords and not the judicial reform. And when you say that it's eventually going to happen, it's inevitable, of course.
I see it as inevitable. It's just by demographics, I think.
Yeah, but we have to explain it. We have to re-educate the society to this process. Because otherwise it can be not berachamim chalila. This is our mission.
So tell me about in Israel these days. Tell me about the Netzach Yehuda position on the war,
Israel.
the current
Netzach
war.
Israel, yeah.
Netzach, sorry, what did
Israel,
I say?
Israel.
Sorry. the goals of toward bringing back the hostages, the very active movement that seemed to be using the word of bring back the hostage as the be all and end all of the current conflict.
Yeah, there are two methods. Methods of thought. I truly believe on the method of the forum of, it's called Forum Agvura, Forum of Valor, of the part of the bereaved families, is led by part of the bereaved families. And they truly believe that the right way to bring back the hostages is as a result of a surrender of Hamas.
Strength and surrender.
Yeah, it's a cause of strength, of course. We need to surrender them. We need them to be surrendered in order to bring back the hostages. I truly believe it. I don't believe in other way.
Do you think that the existence of the politicization of the judicial reform and the carryover between the judicial reform protests and the hostage movement protests, are those similar? Are they the same, some of the same people?
Yeah.
And what are the viewpoints of the sort of the religious community?
Yeah. Okay, it's very well connected. There is only one purpose for, again, those very, very tiny minority groups of power, not more than 1% of the Jewish population in Israel. They would like to take control upon the government, and then impose their agenda upon the majority in Israel. So this is all about, the whole campaign of bringing back the hostages and the judicial reform. The judicial reform is necessary, but again, there is a need that the judicial reform as a process in democracy state to be in a process, not by force.
So what are some, I guess maybe last question or second to last question. What are some major goals, and what if you could say, like,
practical steps?
If you could say what your two practical goals when you came to America were, what
so
were
again,
they?
Moshe asked me at the beginning, what am I doing here? So I told him I actually do not know.
Right.
But
I presume you came in to make friends, at least. I hope so.
But if my words, our conversation sounds good for you, if you actually internalized the message and you actually identify with the message, I think that you cannot run away. It's part of you. We are not talking about a safe shelter anymore. We are talking about a new Jewish state. We need to actually renew the spirit of Israel. And it's very well connected to the old Jews around the world. But the United States, as the state, most of the Jewry of the world is here. So we started here. But I think that all of the Jews around the world are very well connected to this mission. Again, to save the Jewish state, not the state of the Jews. Do you understand the difference? Correct. That's good.
Putting the state
right.
before the Jews. I get that. Any we call it final statement. Anything to leave off by? Anything to say?
Yeah. In addition, furthermore, I truly believe that if you, the public, those who can hear us, are identified with us, so Bezat Hashem, we would like them to be part of us, because again, the main goal is to unite the people in Israel and around the world, to change the mindset in order to prevent from those progressive movements to eradicate the Jewish identity from the Jewish state. And we need your standing order. We need your monthly payment. We didn't come for this. We came actually to explain and to actually bring the jury to an awareness of what I've just mentioned in this very, very very warm conversation. but we need the Jewry with us. We need our brothers with us.
Okay. So the message is be a part. Listen to the Netsach Israel message. Listen to what you're saying, and the truth is, I'll be honest with you, we're in agreement. So Elizabeth and I are both proud religious Zionists. Elizabeth has thought about making Aliyah maybe like 3 to 5 times a year, I would say. Spend most of August in Israel. We often feel like we should be spending more time in Israel. I've looked into starting a paper in Israel. The lesson I've learned is probably not a good idea, but it's something I'm interested in. But I'm just we're sold. We're sold. And we're gonna. What I want to say is I want to wish you much hatzlacha. My sense is you're going to go through pivots, meaning Netsach Israel is going to change. I think you'll it's more to me. It's more than just bringing attention to a cause. Meaning, I think you're going to be drawn into different things. Politics is clearly an area where you're going to be drawn into.
I mean, the public would like us to establish a party, but I'm not there yet. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. That's the reason I'm here. And just to mention practically, with your permission, you can Google Netsach Israel in Hebrew. I believe in 3 weeks from now, there will be a website in English as well. And just register as members.
Okay. And the tagline of your party would be something like "Make Israel Jewish Again."
No, the tagline it's in Hebrew it's Netsach Israel Meshivim et Haribonut La'am. We return the sovereignty to the people. Like in the Gettysburg speech, Lincoln, the democracy is for the people, by the people, Leman ha'am, al yedei ha'am, for the people, by the people.
That sounds very American.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's like the Declaration of Independence.
It does sound very American. And by the way, that's not uncommon for Israel to look to America for political inspiration. So not always warranted, but definitely not.
Okay. But thank you for being here. Thank you for your time.
For having me.
God
bless you.
Thank
you so much.
Thanks for being with us on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. If you would like to participate or be in touch with us in any way, please email us at editor@jewishlink.news and follow us and find our podcast wherever you find podcasts.